What Is My Podcast About? A podcast where, on a basis of once every 2 weeks, we talk about various concepts, topics, to try to figure out what we want to continue talking about for our podcast. I'm your host this week, Matthew, and I'm joined by the wonderful Peter.
Hello!
And the equally wonderful Keith.
I don't know about equally, but we'll find out.
We'll fight for the most wonderful at some point today.
Yeah, so anyway...
By the end of the day, one of the three of us will be the most wonderful.
That might be code word for dead.
So, anyway, since we're all still alive, how are you doing?
Good.
A lot of interesting stuff's happening, gaming-wise anyways. We recently had some actual gameplay reveal for Halo Infinite, which is looking pretty good.
Also, grapple hook.
Yeah, it looks super fun. The game, not necessarily the grappling hook, but the grappling hook also looks pretty fun to play
Doom
around.
Guy can do it, why can't Chief?
Yeah, I mean, the grapple hook looks awfully weak for a suit of armor that's about 1,000 pounds.
Have you seen this man jump?
Yes, but that's the man, not a flimsy rope.
It might not be flimsy, that might be solid steel.
Yeah, true. Still.
We've already seen one moment of him pulling himself towards an enemy so that he can punch it real good in the face.
Yeah, despite the fact that he could run at about the same speed.
Yeah, doesn't need to be fast, just needs to be cool.
He's just getting lazy in his old age.
Yeah.
Although I did like how...
He just instilled Heelys on the bottom of his shoes.
I did like how he grappled the plasma battery to throw it at a turret.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Him grappling shit to pull it to him just to throw it somewhere else.
And it's looking interesting too. The concept looks like Chief is kind of going back to his roots where he was lost in space and finds a ring and a remnant of the old Covenant army that wants to fire it off.
Yes, and it looks like, I don't know, something happened before it wiped out a huge portion of the UNSC, so maybe they already did a small test fire of it. I don't know.
Could be.
Who knows? We do see in that same trailer that the ring seems to be in a state of partial disrepair, so
yeah.
It's potential that either it's been broken over the years or this might actually just be an entirely new ring that they're trying to build and it's almost complete, a la the Death Star from Star Wars. And they gotta swoop in there and blow it up before it's finished, because once they get finished, oh boy, that's bad for humanity.
Good thing it's easy to destroy as hitting Womp Rants with a T-90.
Yeah, exactly. You just gotta shoot the exhaust port, which sucks in bombs for some reason. Because that's how exhaust... We're not talking about Star Wars. We're not talking about Star Wars.
In other news, this might only interest me, but they're remaking the Fate Extra games from the PSP as Fate Extra Record, which looks to be some sort of like open world-esque RPG, which looks amazing compared to what it did on the PSP, but, you know...
I can agree with that. I have touched that game before.
I can also agree that that may also only apply to you.
That's fair.
I have limited experience with the Fate series at best, so...
Yeah, I'm not particularly a fan of the combat system that original game had, but I am intrigued to see how it's going to turn out in the new release coming out.
So I've been doing some fun things in my free time in that I realized about a month ago, Pokemon Sword and Shield released the first of their DLC expansions.
Yep.
And I realized that yesterday, so I've been going through the Pokemon DLC since yesterday.
Are you enjoying it?
It's super fun. I really like how, essentially, from what I could tell, they heard the major note that people had about Sword and Shield, which was, my favorite Pokemon isn't in this game. Why isn't my favorite Pokemon in this game? Why didn't you allow me to bring it forth from other games? And essentially, they just seem to have been like, fuck it, we'll make the Pokedex bigger. Here's more of your favorite Pokemon. Which is good, because now my favorite Pokemon is in this game. So they at least got my fucking note, and that's what matters most.
What's your favorite Pokemon?
His name is Zoroark, and he's the
okay.
pure dark type, who's badass and clones other Pokemon. He's cool.
Yeah, see, I realized I never have to worry about my favorite Pokemon being in the game, because Snorlax is a staple of every puzzle in Pokemon.
Yeah, there's always a fucking Snorlax in a fucking Pokemon game.
Yes.
That's such a resigned yes.
I mean, it's fucking Snorlax.
I mean, he
Snorlax.
finally stood up in what, Pokemon X and Y?
Yes.
Yeah.
And started running in Sun and Moon.
Yes. But yeah, isn't he laying back down in Sword and Shield?
He becomes an island, mountain.
Right, yeah.
But also, if you run into him on the overworld, he does run full tilt at you.
Right,
again.
yep.
So he both
Forgot about
flies
that.
down and runs still.
So yeah, just a terrifying sight.
Peak Snorlax.
But
So
oh god, his next form is gonna be normal fighting type, and he's gonna be on Macho. I can just see it now.
oh yeah, he's gonna like do like the anime move of like a slightly obese character inhaling and then their pecs get real big and you realize that it's actually all muscle that's just weirdly proportioned throughout their body and he's actually the strongest being in all of Earth.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah. I haven't been playing Pokemon, but as you guys may have noticed, I've been playing a lot of No Man's Sky, which may or may not be part of the reason why our originally planned episode had to be delayed.
Matt?
What?
I am terribly sorry.
I don't know what you're talking about. This is what we were always going to talk about after the hit we gave on the last episode. It was very clear we were going to talk about this.
Okay, should we get into what we were going to talk about then?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the audience already knows. They figured it out from the last
Oh,
one.
yeah.
We're talking about Tower of God, obviously.
But yeah, Tower of God, a world we're thrust into where we have next to no knowledge of, alongside the main character. Bam? Bomb?
Bam.
Bam.
I call him Bomb.
I choose to call him Bam because it sounds badass. Bam!
I call it Bam because that's what it looks like, and in the Japanese dub, they don't actually call him Bam. But he wakes up in a hole, and he finds, this girl finds him, Rachel, and she starts teaching him about things, and then she disappears, says she's going to climb a tower to see the stars, and he doesn't want her to go, so he chases after her, and opens up the gate to enter the tower himself.
Oh, to be fair, it's not that he doesn't want her to go, he just doesn't want to be a part of it.
True.
Yeah, he's fine with her going as long as he gets to go with her, but that's not a part of her plan as described to him, and that's not okay with him.
Well, to be fair, I don't think she actually gives him a plan. It's just like, sorry, Bam, I need to go, and then just disappears into light in the door.
I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna bring you with me because I want to go and I don't know you, I guess.
Also, not to spoil the end of the season, which we're going to get to later on, the logic of this whole exchange makes very little sense if you actually think about it. But we'll get there.
We'll get there.
I mean, at the same time, I don't think she was planning on him showing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. But anyway, a little bit on this tower, because it's been a while since I watched the first 2 episodes, so I can't remember if they went into too much detail on the tower or not back then.
They gave a little bit of detail. They essentially gave the detail that you get at the opening intro, which is that whatever you desire, whatever wish you may have, if you manage to climb to the top of the tower, all your dreams will come true. We also get, probably not in the first 2 episodes, it might be a little bit later in the season, we get a bit more detail of like the hierarchy of the tower and different types of people who live there, but...
Yeah. So I did a little bit of reading, and just for my own sake of mind, I found out that each floor of the tower is roughly the size of North America.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And as such, there's different cultures on each floor. Higher up has higher status and higher wealth.
Yeah.
And because of the size of each of these floors, there's cultures and subsects of people who don't even know that they're in a tower.
Yeah, the tower is essentially broken up into 3 sections as well, whereas there's the inner tower, which is what everyone's kind of climbing to kind of reach the top. There's the outer tower, which is where a whole bunch of people live, and they kind of don't interact with the tower on a day-to-day basis, but that's also where people are usually pulled from to kind of become regulars, as they're called, to start climbing the tower and start to attain their dreams.
Yeah.
And then there's the middle tower, which is kind of like a nebulous area between the two, which is connected to the inner tower so you can access different floors from it. But also, the people who live there don't really have rights, from what I can understand, because some of them just like become test subjects and bullshit, but that's later on.
Yeah, the spot between towers is kind of like a raw power of the tower as well. So it's like kind of like that's where the concept of most of the floor guardians is also. Their power is usually manifested in that barrier spot between the inner and outer.
And then, but the thing to note is even this outer tower is still considered a part of the tower. So even people who grew up in the outer tower have never seen anything outside the tower. They just haven't been in the proper climbing portion of the tower.
Which kind of opens up the first mystery of the series, is the fact that Bam, he wakes up in a cave underneath the tower, so he's not even in the tower to begin with.
I don't know if it's explicitly stated that he's underneath the
Yeah,
tower. I think he's in a completely different...
Well, it could be in a tower. I don't think it's explicitly stated that he's under the
he's
tower.
in a cavern.
He's in a cavern. That's
He's in a cavern.
He's in a cavern. It's outside of the tower.
Yeah, it's proper. It's not the Odor Tower. It is fully outside of the tower. And he's in some sort of cavern, and he's never seen anything other than cavern.
Well, as far as he knows, he's lost his memories.
He has no memory of seeing anything other than the cavern, if you want to get real fucking pedantic right now.
And I do.
Yeah, so essentially, as we were saying before, Rachel ends up wanting to go and climb the tower because she wants to get to the top and see the stars finally. So there's this chase scene kind of at the beginning of her running and then Bam chasing after. He finally catches up to her and she's like, well, I gotta go. And then she just gets pulled through a door, which is on the floor, but also the wall.
Yeah.
There's a lot of light, and then he's like, no, I want to go too. And then a few seconds later, the door opens up for him.
Yeah, and he goes through the door, and he's presented with the first challenge he has in order to be able to climb the tower.
Hida, which is kind of like the all-powerful being of the tower.
Yeah, he's the one who... Normally he selects people from the Outer Tower to become regulars and climb the tower. He's also just kind of the one who decides who gets to climb the tower and who doesn't.
Yeah, he's like the first floor guardian and the tower caretaker.
But his power actually goes far beyond just the first floor. He has a lot of power because he is also the one who chooses who gets to enter the part of the tower for the climbing. Yeah. So his power level puts him usually he's probably the most powerful thing we will have seen in the series as of season 1 and will see for some time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll eventually see some more powerful beings, but that's gonna be a bit of a ways out. But yeah, so his first task is to enter what looks like a tank of water, which is just on the other side of like a metal gate, and destroy a black ball, which is protected by a white eel giant.
Yeah, giant like white sea serpent type thing.
Yeah, that's the word, sea serpent, not eel.
It wasn't in the sea.
It was in the...
It's like water cage serpent.
The water air serpent.
So it's not... Well,
where?
Well, we will find it. So let's stop joking about it. It's the magical Shinsui thing.
Yeah.
It flows like water.
Well, it's not just water. It's also all of the air in the tower. Essentially, every non-material in the tower is this. And it either takes on liquid form or gaseous form.
Yeah, the liquid form is the more raw form of it.
Yeah.
And it's the power that they channel to use magic or to enhance their own abilities and such throughout the tower.
Yeah.
And the higher up you go in the tower, the more dense it is in the air.
Yeah, the best way to kind of put it would be think of it in other things such as like it would be mana or ki or chi or anything like that. It's just a natural force that people can use to do things.
At the same time, as Matt said, where it gets more dense higher up in the tower, that also means it becomes more dangerous because unlike normal mana or something like that where it's a source of power, it can also just kind of suffocate you through sheer power kind of crushing in on your body if you're not adapted to handle it.
Yeah, using the water analogy, it's kind of like going deeper and deeper in water.
Yeah.
You have to slowly customize yourself to it. You can't just drop right down.
And that's kind of shown in their third test, kind of.
Yeah.
2.5 test.
Yeah.
We don't get to see what most people's first test is, because everyone else is given a more traditional test. In fact, a Princess of Jihad, which is a term we'll understand later, but not right now.
Depending on it's Jihad, Zahad.
All we know is that they're a powerful individual and should be respected and or feared.
Yeah, so she just kind of like drop kicks them. So
like,
she's that anime character.
Yeah. Yep. She introduces herself to people by kicking them in the face.
It's like, you're weak, you shouldn't be here, go home, you'll die if you try this.
But here, take this sword to go do this challenge anyways.
It's not exactly, like, presented in that way, because she's not, like, shitting on him as she's having this conversation. She's more so just, like, trying to protect him and just, you serve a valuable purpose, because at this point, Heaton's already, like, declared Bam to be what they call an irregular.
And it's more Yuri talking to Heaton, like, why are you even letting this kid try this?
Why is this a test? I think she says, like, people on the 30th floor of the tower can't handle this kind of test while you're trying to get someone who's trying to enter the tower to do this kind of test.
Yeah. Which, considering he's a regular, makes sense, because irregulars, when Heaton brings people into the tower, because the difference between a regular and irregular is someone who's entered the tower willingly as someone who's forced himself.
Yeah, an irregular is someone who opens the door themselves.
Yeah, which Bob ends up doing to find Rachel. But kind of pretty much how it works is regulars, when they're brought in, they're kind of limited because of the fact they're brought in. But an irregular is not something that's quantified by being brought in, and that's why irregulars tend to be notorious for being disturbers of the flow, because they're unregulated in a sense because of the fact that they weren't chosen to come to the tower. So they have a lot of possibility of exceeding what is a normal limit of people that are in the tower.
At the same time, we also get kind of a bit of information. One of the characters says, according to legend, that irregulars don't necessarily force the doors open themselves, but are chosen by the tower in times of need, of like, this is the kind of person that the tower needs right now.
Yeah,
so
it's your standard chosen one concept.
Yeah, because when we first see the doors appear before Bam, it certainly does not look like he's forcing the doors open. And he has no idea, aside from what Rachel told him about the tower, what the tower is.
Yeah,
just if you get to the top, you get your wish. So he's kind of fresh into all this when he gets in. He ends up deciding, it's like, well, it might be dangerous, but I have to do whatever I can to climb the tower to find Rachel again.
Yeah, I'm going to climb the tower as far as I can just to see what I can.
Yeah, so Yuri gives him the Black March, which turns out there's a woman inside the sword, and she likes Baum more than Yuri, and Yuri gets pissed off. He's like, well, you're not a man.
Yeah, she like full on fucking falls for Bam. At the same time, like, it doesn't happen immediately, but it happens between this moment and the next time that Yuri sees Bam. She also hardcore falls for Bam as well. Like, she's super into him by the next time we see her, but that's also way down the road.
So he ends up passing this test. He realizes that the only way to actually do it is he has to attack from the inside because he can't attack from the outside, and that was what apparently Hedon was trying to test, is if Baum was willing to take risks like that.
Yeah, the main test is to see if he was willing to sacrifice his life to achieve the goals he dreams of.
Yeah. So he let the serpent eat him so he could cut it up from within.
Yeah.
Well, cut off its tongue specifically.
Well, yeah.
So then it spits him back out, and then he goes over to break a big black rock, and it kind of works, except not really, and he freaks out, and then he wakens the sword lady and breaks the rock.
Well, my favorite thing about this, too, is because normally in this type of, like, storyline, it's usually just the one hit breaks the thing, and they draw back to, like, he hits it once, like, well, it's not going to just break him one hit.
It was the epic build-up to it, too, and then he just swings the sword down.
It just cracks.
And it just bounces off. You're like, what?
Yeah, he's got, like, this badass hero walk towards the stone. He's like, yeah, this is it. Takes it, and it's just like, yeah, it wasn't going to break this single hit. You're going to have to do more than that. Meanwhile, the fish in the background's getting a little pissed off and is coming in for a second swipe. And that's when he awakens the sword lady.
Yeah, and then the next challenge is where we start getting more of the characters that are in the story that we're going to see from here on. So it's like, he's dropped to a floor, it's like, there's 200 of you. Only 100 can move on to the next one.
I think it was 399, and they had to narrow it down to 200, I think?
Big number to lesser number.
Yeah.
They had to cut the good number in half.
Yeah, it was 399 down to 200, and that's why they had the kind of test 2.5 after they got through.
Yeah. Sure. So there's the whole thing where it's like you have to just be one of the last people standing. That's specifically how they word it, but people start killing each other.
Yeah, essentially, yeah, you need to whittle the group down to 200 however you feel, and people just start murdering, and Bam, sweet baby Bam, is not about that murder life. He's just about finding Rachel. So he just kind of runs away from everyone and just tries to stay safe.
He draws the attention of arguably one of the best characters in the show because of the sword that he has.
Yeah, him and one other character gain the attention of Rock, but Rock decides to go after Bomb specifically with the Black March. But there's this green reptilian-looking girl with a green sword that looks kind of similar.
Yes, I do like her, but we don't learn anything about her until a little later.
Yeah. Now, the thing I find a bit funny about this is because, obviously, it gets down to 200, and Bomb and a few others go on to the next mission. But the concept that we end up finding out is that you don't have to specifically kill the people to get down to 200, as we find out that there are some loopholes around it, which makes me wonder, in the grand scheme of, like, the lore going back in Tower, do you think there was ever a moment during this event specifically where the people just sat down and negotiated out who they think should go on as the next group? Like, no one died, and that was like, you know, I got this far, but you look pretty tough. I think I'm just going to leave.
You kind of get the feeling with a lot of tests throughout this tower of the idea of, like, no one has to die for this test to proceed. But they always, like, build the clause of, like, you could kill someone, and if everyone else is dead, then by default you pass. And it's just like, everyone just keeps defaulting to the, yeah, I'm just going to murder everyone else. And that's how I'm
the easiest method is just to kill the person.
Yeah.
But you also look at the fact that the strong people higher up in the tower, they're kind of ruthless.
Yeah.
The ones we know about.
Also, we also kind of see that you have to be ruthless to get high in this tower, just based on the concept.
And so the strong people down below, they realize this and they're like, oh, we have to be ruthless too, and it essentially turns into a weeding of the weak.
Yeah, it's just, from the tower's initial conception, nothing about it required murder, and it's just the fact that because it acted as a murder tower for so long, it now has to continue acting in that way, otherwise you won't survive the murderers you find later on.
Yeah, it's kind of given everyone that connotation that it has to be that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's enforced by people of the higher power levels, as we kind of find it too.
Yeah.
But the fun thing about how this test works is it's trying to test your ability to climb the tower through all these challenges. So as soon as it drops down to 200, it's like, okay, no more killing at this point or fighting or anything, but now you have to make 2 friends.
Yeah.
You have to do this in 2 minutes.
Anyone who kills someone from this point onwards will be disqualified from climbing the tower.
I know some of you are kill happy right now, but I'm going to need you to stop.
I need you guys to make friends.
And because of that 2-minute time limit that they're given, some of those people had to make friends with the people that they were in the middle of trying to kill.
Yeah. Well, such as Rock, who is there with him and Kun. And then Kun comes to play, it's like, we need Alligator Man on our team because we're not going to fight anyone. So we're just going to jump on him.
Yeah, they just distract him for the entire 2 minutes, and just as the timer's reaching 0, they jump on him, and since they're all touching, they're pulled through.
Well, yeah. Kun is essentially just like, I'm going to try and find someone else. Me and Bam, we're cool. We're going to be friends. And Rock's like, I'm going to murder you, turtles. You are my prey. This is how this works. And then Bam comes up with the genius idea of like, sure, let's fight. I'm putting down my sword. And Rock's like, no, that defeats the purpose. And essentially, Bam just whittles down the time until they jump on him at the last second.
Essentially, the taming of Rock comes down to the concept of, if you stick with Bomb, who draws strong people, you get to fight more strong people, and Bomb gets stronger, so then you can fight him later.
Yeah, that's essentially the whole like logic that Bomb talks Rock into. Kun talks him into it. He's just like, you gotta wait for Bomb to get stronger, and once Bomb gets stronger, then it'll actually be fun to fight.
And then helps appease him when he gets irritable with chocolate later.
Yeah.
Another one of the fun moments in this one where they have to make friends is, at this point, there's Pats and Anak, so the green lady and a guy with swords, and they're fighting pretty much the whole, like, they didn't actually kill anyone, if you look at it. They were just kind of fighting each other this whole time, and had, like, a standstill, and then they just immediately agree to team up together.
The best part about this is, during this whole fighting scene, a third character, Shibisu, is watching these two powerful warriors fight, and he's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I think I'm just gonna hide until we're down to 200. I just gotta survive, and then I'll figure it out.
The best thing about this character is he's wearing a purple tracksuit, and he just seems to be some high schooler who takes martial arts.
He keeps talking about how he's
his killing techniques.
His killing techniques.
Yes, he's mastered killing techniques, and it's just him being able to punch real good. Anyways, he just talks them into this, and then the two Hots and Anak decide to team up because, we're powerful fighters. Sure, let's be a team. Chibi's just like, alright, and I'm here too. That makes 3, and immediately Hots and Anak ignore him, and they're like, alright, now it's time to go find a third. Let's see what happens. He's like, no, we got a third. I'm here. I'm a part of the team. Oh, boy.
Yeah, and this is kind of like the last test that doesn't have instructors specifically, I guess is the best way to put it, because at this point we get kind of introduced to the concept of there's people on each floor that kind of lead tests, and you need to pass these tests to move on, and this is the training floor, essentially. So we have a series of teachers who are specifically testing them based on the rules of the tower.
Yeah. We're introduced to the first one of these, quote-unquote, rankers, as they're called, because once someone finishes climbing the tower, they're then ranked against everyone else who's ever finished climbing the tower, and to determine who's the strongest individual. And once this ranking is complete, they're kind of given more power than all the other people throughout the tower. And so the first of these rankers, Lero Ro, great fucking name, introduces himself to the group of people who passed the second round.
Yep, but guess what? There's still way too many people.
Yeah, almost everyone made groups of 3 perfectly. And he's like, well, we gotta trim this down a bit. And this is probably like one of the best like jokes and hints of what's happening in the story.
Yep.
And he's like, now I'm gonna have to test you guys, so I need you to get through this wave. And he shoots out the wave of the power and makes this wall that they have to get through. And then it goes over, and Bomb's still on the other side of the wall, so he didn't get pushed back. He's like, oh, sorry, I'm just gonna go over to the other side. Like, no, you pass.
Yeah, he's just like, sorry, I guess it didn't hit me. I'll walk to the other side so I can walk through. And Lero's like, no, I mean, luck's technically a skill, I guess. So, you pass right off the bat.
He makes the wall of power, which is essentially just a wall of water, and he's like, the higher levels of the tower pretty much have this concentration and more up. So if you can't withstand this, you can't go up.
Yeah.
So it pushes everyone back, even like the strongest people who were fighting before.
Yeah.
But Bam's just there, like, what happened?
Yeah.
The other best part about this is immediately after Bam's given the pass for being lucky / immune to Shinsu, as we learn later, is we're then introduced to another recurring theme throughout this fucking series, which is that rankers are apparently bored as fuck and will make bets about anything to pass the fucking time.
Yeah.
Which is what Lero does. He's just like, alright, we got time to kill. Let's make a bet. Who do you think will be the first one to pass the
Now, to
ball?
be fair, at this point, Leroy's suspecting something about Bomb for being different, so he's actually trying to get information by tricking him into betting information.
Yeah, but they both bet for the same person at
Yeah.
the same time.
Yeah. Which technically means they tie, so no one should get information. But Lero points out that even just tying with a ranker is impressive enough that he counts it as a win for Bam and gives him all the information he wants.
Yeah, out of a lot of the rankers we encounter in this, Leroy's kind of like, he seems like the most chill.
Yeah, he's like a cool dude.
The most down to earth and just wants to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And eventually, most of the characters we've mentioned at this point end up passing the test. There is a pretty funny moment where a guy with a gun is like, oh, this isn't fair, I'm just gonna kill the ranker guy. And he walks in and is like, do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Try it. Do it. Scrub Lord, see what you can do.
But also, one of my favorite characters makes his appearance here, too. Well, not his first appearance, but he's just a guy who's asleep. He wakes up, walks through the wall, and just goes back to sleep.
Yeah. He is a recurring character who a lot of his arcs, or not his arcs, but a lot of his appearances is him being carried by someone who is currently awake because he sure as fuck isn't.
Because he's asleep. He's skilled enough to climb the tower, but he's just asleep while everyone else does the work.
Yeah, and he also passes through this wall perfectly fine.
Yes.
And immediately lays down on the other end.
Yeah. We see kind of a spectrum of people where most people either walk through completely unfazed, like this sleeping guy or the green lizard lady who we've already discussed, Anak. Or there's a whole bunch of other kind of regular Joes who just treat it like a brick wall and cannot make any progress. And then you get the one example of other people somewhere like right on the cusp. And that's with Shibisu.
And, what was her name? Serena.
Serena. Who both like acknowledge that they're both like normal people and just shit on each other constantly for it. Like he's like, oh, I can't push through, and she's like, man, this is why they gotta do tests like this to keep the chaff like you had. And then she immediately makes no fucking progress on it.
She turns to just walk through the wall, slams into it, and just stands there.
Yeah. They both managed to push through, and like Shibisu tries to make friends with her. He's like, hey, team like struggled and managed to force her way through, and she's like, I'm not on a team with a shithead like you. You're way below my level, even though they are empirically on the exact same fucking level.
Like, I like to entertain the idea that the only reason they made it past that wall was just so they could get the one up over the other.
Yeah. So then we get to the third test, which is essentially a test designed to like prove that you're capable of making decisive decisions and you're not going to get bogged down with doubt when the time comes. And that they walk into a room which has 10 doors, and they have 10 minutes to choose the door to walk through. And if they walk through the wrong door, they die. And if they walk through the right door, then they get to continue onwards.
Yeah, this is probably one of my favorite tests. The only one that beats this is the tag test.
Yeah.
Because one of the characters we have with us in our main group, Kun, he's really smart. He's the source of most of their strategies going forward. All of the strategies going forward.
He is the brain of the team.
Yeah.
He has some things that are clouding his mind. Some
doubts from his past life before he started climbing the tower.
And a particular individual in the waiting room for the test is going around giving some people some information that he found out about the test.
To be fair, he's not giving everyone information.
Not true.
He specifically gives Kun information to see how Kun will react to the information he's been given.
Yeah.
So, essentially the test is you have to walk through a door within 5 minutes, and if you take more than 5 minutes to walk through it, then all the doors are wrong, but if you walk through any door within 5 minutes, then all the doors are right.
Also, I think this is the one test where they just straight up say, you die.
Yeah.
If you fail, you die.
Yeah.
There's no, oh, you don't get contact, you're just dead.
Yeah. Which might not actually be accurate. They might not actually die, but it might just be
or like
they're
just drop
stating that you die in order to like try and build up the tension of this is a vitally important decision. You really need to logic the fuck out of this choice.
Also, we get to see a few other people take this test and how it plays out. And the best thing is that in the team with Anak and Hans, Shibitsu apparently just cracks the code immediately.
Yeah, so...
he actually does something.
Yep.
We see a whole bunch of other characters. Like, fucking Rock's solution to it is he's hungry and he feels in his bones that this is the right door to walk through.
His gut tells him that's the door, so he just kicks it open.
Yeah. And Kuhn's like, how did you know? There was a 90% chance we would have fucking died from this. And Rock's like, but we didn't, so that's that.
I was hungry and I wanted to leave. Let's go.
Where Shibisu points out that there's a clock on the wall, and even though it's a 10-minute test, the clock counts down for 5 minutes and then stops. He's like, yeah, no, it's a 5-minute clock. We have 5 minutes to make our choice and then it's over. Like, he logics the shit out of it perfectly. Also points out that everyone who's gone through ahead of them, they could either hear success within 5 minutes or failure after 5 minutes, and there was no separation.
No sounds.
If they left before the 5 minutes, they heard nothing. If they stayed in there for 5 minutes, they heard
the sounds of failure.
After 5 minutes, there was a scream always before the test ended, but anything before that, there was just silence.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which is the specific clue that Kuhn was given, which he could have used to immediately solve the puzzle. But he immediately gets bogged down in his head of overthinking the situation and trying to...
I believe in the comic, there's a little bit more context. We get to this one too, because obviously we're at the anime, they had to bullet down some things. And the context is there's a few fake teams that actually go through beforehand who fake failing the test and succeeding the test, because the screams is actually a part of the test and not actually important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that part was glazed over in the anime.
It was not addressed in the anime.
Yeah, we just get the one guy who comes up and says, I noticed this, you should take a listen to this. But we find out that apparently only this team got this hint.
Yeah. We also get a bit of a moment as Kuhn's kind of carrying his fun little satchel, which he's already pulled infinite chocolate bars for Rock from, of the main test director, Hansung Yu, specifically calling out Kuhn's bag of being a particularly heavy burden, but then just kind of leaving it at that. And he's like, you got a lot in that bag, but whatever, I don't care enough to punish you for that.
Yeah, my favorite thing, because I have to point out that I like about this character too, is the fact that their whole thing is they really like coffee, and they have like the whole coffee ceremony thing, but they drink exclusively instant coffee.
Yeah. The best part is when he invites one of the other rankers into his room to like talk about what's going on. He's like, here, a cafe mocha, I highly recommend it. And it's just a fucking stick of instant coffee. And he's like, are you fucking serious right now?
And you're like, he doesn't even have like spoons or anything, he just like pours it and starts stirring it
with the packet, yeah. Oh boy. But yes, just as soon as this team finishes their test, and kind of goes through and is now waiting for test number 4, we're told that a different group run by a different ranker,
specifically Quant,
the best ranker, like super fucked up the second test.
You remember that event where there was like the 400 people, 500 people, and
200 people got through?
3 people succeeded. Everyone else died.
Literally only 3 people. So the rest of the tests don't make sense anymore, because how are you supposed to have them compete against anyone when it's just the 3 people working together?
So they put on a bonus test to kind of combine the 2 groups. The group of everyone in the first test, and then the group of 3 from the other test.
Yeah, the Crown Game is actually a really cool concept in this one, where we get to kind of see... This is our first chance to actually see what most of the other characters can actually do.
Yeah, we get like a couple clips and fight scenes of like Anak and Hots fighting, as we've talked, but we don't really see their power levels. Whereas in the Crown Game, we actually get to see the full capacity of different people fighting at their times, and it's quite impressive, to be honest. We see a lot of very cool powers. We see the sleeping guy actually do something for once.
Yeah, by the way, Leroux is the name.
Yes. Which is, we see him control Shinsu, which is a thing we've only seen rankers do so far. And then we find out that he's something called a wave controller, and that means he's made a pact with an administrator, which are all words that'll be explained later on, probably. And so he can control Shinsu and uses it to fight in the Crown Game.
Yeah, and at this point, because they passed that test previous, this is a bonus game, so it's not actually a normal thing that happens, but they do explain that at this point they would normally be kind of like doing school training based on their assigned ranks, but before they get there, they're doing this game to pretty much integrate this other team to fix the problem that Quant had in his. But at the same time, whoever wins this game just passes all the tests. They get to start climbing the tower.
Yeah.
They're allowed to start climbing the tower. There's no more tests for
And because it's a bonus game, if you fail the test, it's no big deal.
You can still die.
Yeah, you could still die, but if you fail and don't die, then you can still continue taking the tests like normal.
Yeah.
So, fun thing happens while Leroux starts using his wave controller powers to attack Anak while she's sitting on the throne. They start fighting all out, and Black March, which Bam is still holding, starts kind of going nuts in his hand, and he can't control it anymore, and he's getting a little bit confused.
Because if any apt viewers of the show would notice that both Arak's sword and Bam's sword have the same symbol on the hilt.
Yeah, we find out that her sword is actually another of these special 13th month models.
Yeah, Green April, I believe.
Yeah, Green April and Black March. I wonder what the other ones are named after. Maybe a color and a month.
I wonder what the 13th is, though.
Yeah, I really want to know what the fucking 13th is.
It's like White December and then Red December.
Oh no.
So yes. And Anak senses Bam's sword freaking the fuck out. And she immediately stops participating in the crown game. Is like, no, I'm taking that from you. That is mine now. You're not allowed to have that fucking sword. That's a princess of Jihad, or Zahard, or however you want to
Now, my favorite thing about this, too, is that by doing so, she just eliminated her team from the crown game.
Yeah.
Yep.
She's like, no, fuck the crown game, fuck everything else. I'm taking your sword. And Bam's like, no, how about we make a bet? Because, bets are all the rage in the tower, apparently.
Apparently have a really high luck stat.
Yeah.
Anak made the bet, or
Demanded the bet. It was
Demanded
either you make the
bet,
bet and possibly win, or I just kill you and take it.
yeah.
Yeah. So the bet being that if Bam's team manages to win the crown game,
She won't take the sword.
she won't kill him and take the sword. She'll allow him to keep it for now. Whereas if they lose the crown game, she's taking the fucking sword. It's her sword, and he has to give it to her.
And if he doesn't take the bet, then she'll just kill him.
Yeah, if she doesn't take the bet, if he doesn't take the bet, she's just gonna murder him.
Now, this is a fun part where they go up next with 2 rounds after this left to survive to try to take the throne and go from there. But the fun thing about this, too, is we end up finding out what the trick to Kun's bag is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he walks up and he gets the crown immediately, and he's like making this whole thing about it. And then all of a sudden he's like, you know what, I'm bored of this. And throws the crown onto them. He's like, you guys fight over it. We'll deal with this afterwards.
First he puts it into his bag. He doesn't even put it on his head or Bam's head.
Yeah.
Well, he goes as if he's going to put it on Bam's head. He's like, fuck it, I'm just gonna put it in my bag. You guys fight, and whoever wins will get to have the crown.
So they're sitting up by the throne. They're not even sitting on the throne yet. The other groups are in the area about to fight. And then one of the groups proposes, let's make an alliance to get rid of that guy right now. And then we can fight it out all fair and square. But then another team just starts attacking.
Yeah, well, that's actually the following round.
Yeah.
Right,
Because
yeah.
this round, they just do the trick of he throws the crown, they fight over it, and while they're fighting over it, they put the crown on Bomb's head, and
Yes,
they win
right.
that round.
The best part, so Rock is like a little bit annoyed because he didn't get to properly fight. They used trickery to win this round.
Yeah.
So next round, he's like, all right, here's the plan. Me and Kun are going to protect Bam because Bam's fucking useless at this point right now.
Yeah.
Sit on the throne with the crown on your head, just sit there quietly. And then a couple groups come out, and Rock's like, yeah, I'll take this group. Kun, you take that group. And Kun's like, let's not, though. And he just, like, gets all up on Bam in, like, a super flirtatious way, which I am fully on board with.
And a good thing to mention that while this whole thing's going on, Bomb noticed someone in another cage across, and he's like, wait, is that Rachel? Could that be Rachel this early in the series?
Have we already found the final target that Bam's come onto the tower to look for?
Who knows? She's wearing a cloak, and she's hiding behind a really big dude.
And the best character in the series.
Yes.
And also, every time he says Rachel, she doesn't acknowledge him in the slightest. So anyways, one group kind of, in this moment when they're trying to agree to gang up on Kun so that they can take the crown and win the crown game, immediately doesn't go along with that plan and starts fighting the other two groups. They're like, what the fuck are you doing? We have a plan!
Chaos ensues, and Bam just continues to sit completely fine on the throne.
I mean, to be fair, at this point, he's the least skilled fighter on the team.
Yeah.
At this point, Kun, like, lies back and puts his head in fucking Bam's lap, and it's just, like, patiently explaining the fact that inside his bag was not only infinite crowns, but was also just 3 fucking people from the second test that he snuck through to this point so that he could have friends when he needed them.
When they said you have to eliminate people, he saw this opportunity. He's like, I don't need to eliminate people. I can gather allies.
Yeah. As long as there's less than 200 people on the tower, and if they're my bag, they're not getting counted as
So
on
he
the
just
floor.
found a couple people who's like, hey, if you help me out later, I'll get you past this test.
Yep.
And they're like, sure, I'm on board. So he sticks them in his bag. Take that how you will.
But this also...
Sexually now, if you give me the option.
Now, another fun thing, like, it's never mentioned, but it makes a lot of sense when you realize this, because for a good chunk here, Kun's been giving the chocolate bars to Rock from this bag. But we also find out that the things that are created from this bag disappear after a while. And Rock is constantly hungry for chocolate bars. And you have that moment where it's like, wait a second, he's been feeding him clones of chocolate bars to keep him satiated, but he's always running out of chocolate bars because they just disappear after a couple of minutes, so he's constantly hungry.
Yep.
Yeah. And presumably, they're also disappearing from inside of Rock, which is why he's constantly hungry.
Yeah.
He's just consuming food and not actually digesting
So
it.
later on in the series, he's just going to die of starvation, right?
Well, no, he presumably finds other sources of food at some point. He does get separated from Kun at one point. Anyways, so then we get to the final round of this kind of crown game, and this mysterious team from the other group that's all wearing cloaks and hiding their personalities.
Yeah, the team with not Rachel, big guy, and best character in the series.
Yep. All walk out, and surprisingly enough, they don't seem the least bit interested in winning the crown game. They actually set themselves up defending Bam on the throne as well, which is weird. We find out reasons for all three of these. It's kind of heavily hinted that I'm just going to say Endorsee's name because it's Endorsee and she's the best character in the series.
Endorsee is the best character.
It's very heavily implied that Endorsee does not like Anak at all, the green lizard lady who made the bet with Baum.
Yeah.
So it's presumably the entire reason that they're defending Baum right now, as far as we can tell, is because she just really wants Anak to lose the fucking bet.
Well, at this time too, like, the idea is that these specific swords are only ever held by princesses, and where she has one, everyone's like, well, she's a princess, clearly. And Drossy's like, fake princess, constantly, just kind of calling her out.
Yeah,
Just calling her a princess.
Just calling her an imposter. We still don't know why, but...
She ain't a real princess as far as Endorsee's concerned.
Yeah, and we end up finding out a few things a bit later on. It's not too far, but we end up finding out that the real Princess Anak is dead, apparently.
Yeah, and it's this Anak's mother. And so, let's just get into the full fucking Anak backstory. So, Anak's...
Let's finish the crown game first.
Finish the crown. We gotta leave it on a spoiler. We'll come back to it. Cliffhanger ending.
So the princesses are very strong female individuals who are chosen specifically by Jihad,
the king of the tower.
Yeah.
And they're given specific power from him in order to become even stronger and help declare his rule.
And Endrosi even gives the analogy that the princesses are essentially, I guess, shoes on display, never to be touched, never to be used.
Yeah, and that's because they're all given a portion of the king's power, so this makes them super strong themselves, and to avoid that power from being spread throughout the tower...
They're not allowed to get into any relationships, not allowed to have any children or anything.
Yeah, exactly, and doing so is very taboo, and usually results in the death, which happened to Anak's mother, but Anak survived with the sword and has vowed revenge on the king and all who would rule with him.
Yep, so right now she wants to kill all the princesses of Jihad.
The specific reason she wants to kill all the princesses is not only was Anak killed for getting in a relationship, she was also killed by the other princesses who she considered like sisters to her. Yeah. So Anak's fucking pissed about that whole situation. So she wants to kill all the other princesses for killing her mother, and then also Jihad for creating this entire system where that led to her mother getting killed.
Yeah.
Which is reasonable.
Yeah, I sympathize with her.
So anyways, crown game.
So the fight goes on for a bit, and then there's this mysterious masked figure in a bodysuit and a staff.
Called out for the attire also.
Yeah. Who is full on just ready to murder.
She's wrecking fucking people. Like, Rock gets up and he's like, I'm gonna fucking take this bitch down, and goes to stab at her, and she's like, nope, smacks him across the head, jumps over him, does a backflip and some other fun stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah, and eventually she's about to...
Goes to attack not Rachel, smacks her on the forehead, knocks her backwards.
Turns out it was Rachel.
Yep. So Bam springs into action, jumping off the throne to save her.
Forfeits the game and the sword.
Yeah.
Just like a knock.
Red-haired lady's next attack actually hits Bam straight across the back of the head, and then what looks like a bomb explodes out of him.
Well, can't ignore the fact that his skull's pretty much cracked open and his head's bleeding all over the place now.
But pretty much nobody wins.
Yeah, because Bam specifically destroys the crown.
Explodes with golden energy and just melts the crown completely.
Yeah,
so there's no objective of the game anymore, so we can't have a game around no objective.
Which the crown is apparently like a very indestructible item at this point too.
Yeah.
So that's a weird thing that happens to Bam.
Yeah, and he's in a coma for a couple days.
Yeah, he's just straight up out cold. So then, during the time when he's unconscious, we're introduced to the idea of the different roles that characters take on while climbing the tower.
Yeah, so there's
fishermen, which are the close range fighters.
There's the
spear bearers.
The kind of long range, still forward support fighters, I guess.
Yeah, the wave controllers, which are like the magic users from what we've seen so far. Scouts, which are
like the kind of ground intel gathering.
Yeah.
And light
then
bearers.
Light bearers, which are the kind of distance intel gathering.
Yeah, they usually control something called a lighthouse, which is a type of device that allows them to kind of gather information, hide things within, and all that stuff. There are a few other special versions of these classes that show up later in the series, but they're not really important
because
at this point.
They're not addressed at all in the one season of the anime that we have.
Another thing that should be mentioned about this is just because they're assigned to one of these classes now doesn't mean they can't do the other things. It's just the one they're most attuned to doing at that point. But a lot of people actually switch and will change their classification based on what is needed with their current situation.
Yeah. Like, Kun openly declares himself as a light bearer, not because he's incapable of doing the other things, but just because he likes giving orders to other people.
Yeah, and for the skills we've seen Kun use up to this point too, he could easily have filled the fisherman role.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's very capable with his knife. Rock, unsurprisingly, is a spear bearer because he has a spear and that's what he does.
But the thing I find interesting with spear bearer too is like their whole test is just target practice. So like they're kind of like the ranged.
Yeah, it's to hit a target from far away, pretty much out of sight.
So essentially, each of the different classes is given individual tests to complete, and then if they can't manage to complete their individual tests in the time given, then they're given the option of performing a group test, essentially.
Well, everyone has to perform the group test, regardless of passing or
not. No, because...
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Because those two specifically...
They don't because they passed the
Rock
test.
and Mr. Big Quiet Guy, who got the name Ghost somehow, even though he never speaks, who was with the third group with not Rachel, who was actually Rachel.
Who is now pretending to be
not Rachel
again.
Yes.
Gloria Lightfoot or something like that.
Like Michelle Light.
Yeah,
Michelle Light, that's what it is. Not Rachel to not Rachel is in a group with Endorsi, the best character in the entire series, and Ghost, who's just like a big guy who's kind of like the anti-Rock in that he's big, has a spear.
And he's quiet.
And he doesn't talk at all, unlike Rock.
And also, leading up to this, Bomb has a lot more of his luck take effect because, wouldn't you know it, he was unconscious when the training started, which would have been a forfeit, but since he was assigned a wave controller and they're the last training to start, he wakes up just in time.
Yeah, specifically the wave controller teacher happens to be running a few days late, exactly the amount of time it takes for Bam to wake up. Fun fact.
And of course, Leroy is starting to suspect some things are going on.
Yeah, he's getting a wee bit suspicious of all the happenstance of the realm.
Essentially, we end up seeing a lot of the characters practicing in their skills. Kun just ends up finding out a shitload of information. Now, the reason we get from Rachel, which is purveyed through mainly Kun and Endorsi, is that she doesn't want Bomb to know that she's Rachel because, essentially, if Bomb knows she's there, that will stop him from climbing. That's kind of what she says to Kun. It's like, if we're together, it's not going to be beneficial to either one. We can't be together, so you need to tell him that wasn't me.
Yeah, I think she declares them each other's weaknesses.
Yeah.
Like, if they're around each other, she'll be his greatest weakness, and he'd be her greatest weakness.
Yeah.
So Kun plays along, but he doesn't trust her.
Yeah, he doesn't trust her, so he wants to distance Bam from her anyway.
Yeah. And Drosy just kind of doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, she's like, okay, I'll not tell him anything about you, I guess. But if he says anything about you, then I'm not gonna be quiet.
Yeah, and this is where kind of like we get our solid set of like what to expect from the team-wise, because at this point, Hats and Shibitsu, as scouts, their mission specifically is you don't get to go any further unless you get 10 names of people that are going to be your friends. Yeah. And the best part about this too is Anak just flat out refuses. The person who's been on their team up to this point is like, no.
Yeah, I'm not going to be your guys' friend. Meanwhile, Bam's immediately like, yeah, fuck it. And like they come to the room with Bam and Kun and like try to be like, all right, let's be friends. Just be friends with us. Have lunch. And Kun's like, all right, what can I get out of you guys if I agree to be your friend?
He's
He's
like,
like,
samurai immediately start clashing heads.
Yeah. And Bam's like, no, fuck it, let's be friends. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Because Hats is all about honor and like doing the right thing. Whereas Kun's like, I will underhandedly do everything I need to come out on top for what I need.
Yeah.
But they end up, Kun ends up due to Bam asking nicely, because it turns out bomb is Kun's weakness, I guess.
Yeah.
And
Kun will do whatever Bomb wants.
Yeah,
if Bomb
it's like, come on, let's be their friends and help them. It's like, okay.
And they immediately blackmail Androsi into their little group.
The beautiful thing about this is because we see the fisherman training is it's one-on-one fights, and if you knock the person down, you won't die, but you'll get so badly hurt that you probably won't pass.
Yeah.
So, Androsi's like, oh, okay, it's a simple fight. I'm pretty strong. I'm just going to knock down a few of the weaker guys, call it a day, that's it. And then Anak just beelines it for us. Like, what are you doing? We can pass this test so easily, and you're coming after me.
And then that's when we learn Anak's backstory and why she has it out for Androsi.
And Androsi seems to feel a bit bad about it, too, and, like, kind of, like, pseudo-apologizes in a sense.
Yeah, I think she openly states that the original Anak was actually, like, very nice to her when she first became a princess and was one of the few cool princesses that she knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, of course, they fell, and in order to recover from her injury, she had to use pretty much all of the points she accrued for her test.
Yeah. So how do you bribe her into becoming friends with Shibitsu and Hats? Food.
Yeah, free lunch.
She can't buy her food anymore.
The best part is Bam walks in carrying a tray of food, and he's like, hey, I know you're broken up and don't have any money, so I thought I'd bring you some lunch. And she's like, oh, thank you so much. He's like, but the thing is, you said we're not friends.
You said men and women can't be friends because this is how men and women are.
Yeah, and I feel like this is only the kind of thing a friend would do, so I think I can only give you this food if you agree to be friends with us.
So you need to put your name down on this piece of paper if you want food.
Yeah, and she's like, motherfucker, alright.
Well, they also butter her up by, like, complimenting her and something. Like,
yeah.
Come on, don't you want to... I would just want to be so much friends with a beautiful princess like yourself so badly.
Yeah.
It's like, if you insist.
Yeah. At the same time, they managed to convince Anak to be friends with someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did they do that one exactly? I can't remember.
It's kind of the similar thing where it's kind of like, oh, here's food if you sign our thing.
They bribed her with chicken pie because her father was the best
pie baker
in all of the tower.
Yeah, and so anyways, they get back, and Shibitsu and Hans start talking about how awesome they are, and Kun's like, I literally wrote the fucking script for you, which you said word for word. This is my win. This is not your guys' win.
I won't have you guys stealing this from me. With this, again, he said Ghost and Rock pass the test, but they have to file the final test for points. Now, this one, Quant ends up being in charge of it. It's like, well, I fucked up so badly with my whole thing, so I'm gonna, make you relax a bit, Leroy, and I'm just gonna run this test for you. Clearly there's something amuck, and Leroy's starting to investigate a bit.
Yeah, something's not right about this whole situation.
Yeah, so Quant's test is going to be a game of tag.
Yeah.
Where everyone's broken into two teams. That one, the team gets to choose one person, which is going to be their it person. They have a medallion that they essentially have to escape with.
Yeah.
Or they can also try to capture the other person's.
The person running the test, they're selected it, which happens to be Quant.
Yeah. The ranker running the test is.
Yeah, and there's between the anime and the manga, or the webtoon, however you want to say it, there is some differences that are very drastic in this. For example, one thing that they specifically address in the comic version, but it's not in the anime, is that there's a safe zone at the bottom of this pit where the ranker cannot enter at all.
Oh, okay.
he physically cannot enter it. So it's a safe zone. Nothing can happen there. So they can spend as much time as they want inside their planning, but it also gives him a chance to easily set up on the outside.
Right.
At the same time, they do kind of address this, but his power is limited.
He can only use one bang of Shisu during this whole situation. Yeah. We're not really explained exactly what a bang is, but it's essentially a unit of measurement for the magical power that people use throughout the tower.
Yeah, so essentially he has, if you want to put it like he has a mana cap, they can only cast so much spells within this area.
Yeah.
So he's not gaining Shinsu through the natural means. He's pretty much builds up a stock of it, and that's what he's limited to during this whole fight.
Yeah.
So how they break up the teams is based on who has the best scores and who has the worst scores.
Yeah, there's the team of the champs and the team of the chumps, as I choose to call them.
Because of this, Kun and Bomb end on different teams.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's pretty well established that whatever team loses this match, probably everyone will fail.
It's not quite that. It's that everyone on the good team has enough points that if they win, the bad team cannot possibly catch up.
Yeah, and if the good team loses, then some of the not so good scoring people won't pass through.
They have to win the test in order to succeed and get more points for most of them to pass.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if the good team wins or the bad team loses, there's no chance of anyone on the bad team passing if either one of those conditions happens. Whereas if the bad team wins and the good team loses, then it kind of comes down to those finicky points in between, and some of the good people win and some of the bad people
Now, one of the things I find interesting about this is the fact that also Anak and Androsi end up on different teams. Because I would think they would be similar, but Anak's the one on the team that's doing really good points-wise, and Androsi's just losing.
Androsi used up all of her points to get healed up. True. So, she didn't have any points going into this test anymore.
That's also true.
Yeah.
Whereas Anak, we learned that she learned enhancing abilities with the magic, the Shinsu? What is it?
I think it's Shinsui.
Shinsui,
I don't know how the fuck it's pronounced.
Yeah. But she learned enhancing, so I guess her injuries weren't as severe, so she still had enough points.
Yeah. So, essentially, everyone ends up agreeing that Kun, being the smartest man in the room, should be their strategist.
Yeah, he comes up with the entire plan, he tells everyone exactly what to do, which really fucking pisses Quant off towards the end, because he begins to recognize that some people are working real hard to win, and other people seem to be doing as much as fucking possible to sabotage the entire team.
There's a part here that I'm a little upset got cut out of the anime, which is the Spear Bearers end up forming an alliance in this mission for Team A, where they're like, it doesn't matter if we win this game, we just need to show the world that Spear Bearers rule, and Hans is walking around with them, and Hans ends up actually fighting Quant one-on-one, which is a pretty cool fight. And Quant's like, oh, I'm just going to defeat these guys easily, move on to my thing, because Anak is their person to declare it, and is running to the exit right now.
Yeah.
Hans, realizing he can't win, actually lets Quant hit him with an attack and grabs him. It's like, I might not be able to beat you, but I can sure as hell hold you in place. He's like, Spear Bearers now!
And the Spear Bearers do fucking nothing!
And the Spear Bearers are just running their ass off. And it's the best thing, too, because in the cartoon version of the anime, there's only 2 of them, but I think in the comic there's about 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah.
But they're running up the stairs. And he looks and he's like, you know what? This plan of yours, it's... And the guy's like, what? Amazing!
Yeah.
So Quant this pisses Quant off very badly, and he actively hunts down the Spear Bearers and eliminates them.
Yep.
Now, another thing about... Because really the tag game at this point is what has the most drastic differences.
Yeah.
In the tag game, Quant feels a lot more menacing and threatening in the comic version, I find. Because it's very much hinted with the fact, people will die. Quant is like, I'm going to hold back as best I can, but I might kill you. And that's something you have to realize going into this game. Quant makes it very clear.
If you do not protect yourself, I will fuck you up.
Yeah, so he's a lot more menacing, whereas this one he seems a little goofy.
I kind of prefer the goofy Quant.
Goofy Quant's great, but the gravitas of this event seems a little lackluster in the anime compared to the comic.
So anyways, they get towards the end of the scenario, at least Team A does, and it looks like Quant might just stop them. Then he gets pushed off a bridge, and now it is free and clear to get away with tons of time to spare. And then we get to the bottom of the pit where Quant is now standing, and Kun's also down there, and he's like, hey, how about this? How about I rocket you back up to the top so you can catch our it?
Plus, Mr. Loro, who was sleeping there the entire time.
Yeah, because when they're running to the exit, it's like, oh, okay, we're ready for the fight. Where's Loro? It's like, oh, he's still back in the safe zone. Like, what? It's like, yeah. And it shows back, he's just sleeping on the ground.
Yeah.
We find out this was part of Kuhn's plan.
Yeah, but his explanation, though, was because he already had enough points to pass, so he'd pass anyway.
Yeah, regardless of what team wins, Loro is already guaranteed to win by points alone.
Yeah, because he has by far the most points for any of the wave controllers.
So he has no motivation to assist the team because he'll pass anyway, so Kuhn took that into account and was like, yeah, I'll just let him sleep there.
Now, on top of this, he has enough points, so essentially he's guaranteed a spot based on being a wave controller. Essentially how this works is after this game, I think it's the top 3 of each position. I think it
depends on the position.
It depends on the position. I think it's the top 2 wave controllers.
And I think it's like the top 4.
No, it's definitely more than 2 wave controllers. Because there's a few more wave controllers to get through.
Might have been 3 then.
And then I believe it's...
Who was the other wave controller? I can only think of
it's the girl with the jar.
The girl with the jar that controls
the fish.
Right.
Because in the Crown game, there was also that one that had the wand.
Yeah. I remember now. I completely forgot that she didn't just start appearing later in the story.
I believe it's 2 fishermen specifically that get to pass.
Yeah.
Right.
Which kind of leads into something that we're going to address in a second here, but essentially, Kuhn, we find out, orchestrated this huge plan to purposely make his team almost win, but then fail, so he could set up Team B to win, because, as I said, he drops down and lets Quant go back up to catch a knock, but he whispers something to him. It's like, watch over Ho.
Yeah, because
Ho...
Let's jump back in time and talk about Ho right now, because Ho's a piece of shit.
Another one of the wave casters...
Yeah, wave controller. He was on LaRoe's team originally, and they're all doing training together, but we're seeing that he's kind of struggling, and Bomb, who's had no training whatsoever, is just a natural for this.
Yeah. Well, not only is Bomb a natural for this, but LaRoe also helps Bomb a little bit, because as we find out, he owes Bomb a favor from earlier on when Dorsey straight up drooled all over LaRoe's pillow.
Actually, I think it was Serena.
It might have been Serena.
Yeah, it was Serena.
Yeah, that's right. Straight up drooled all over... Yeah, because she got super fucking drunk. Now I remember.
Drooled all over his pillow, tainting it,
which means that LaRoe cannot use it anymore. And Bomb's gonna be like, don't worry. He grabs a bag of rice. He's like, use this for now. I'll fix your pillow. Bring it brand spanking new. I got you, buddy. So LaRoe's just like, yeah, no, I owe Bam this for fixing my pillow. So I taught him a little bit about wave controlling, which is just all the more reason for fucking Ho to be a real whore about this whole situation.
And then Ho ends up getting some mysterious letters.
Yeah, commenting about how Bam's whole reason for being in this tower is Rachel, and if Rachel were to drop out of climbing, Bam would drop out of climbing as well.
Yeah.
So that's a weird situation for Bam to be in.
Team B is getting ready, and they end up deciding that Androsi is going to be their it person, and Androsi ends up coming up with all the plans for this team.
Yes. We also, jumping back a little bit, the rankers are sitting in the room, like, spectating this first match with Team A.
Yeah.
And they're getting real confused as to why Kuhn is sabotaging his own team. And then fucking Laro Rowe pulls out a piece of paper and he's like, that's not his team. That's not his team. And he pulls out the list of, like, all the friends that Shinzo and Hot's got to sign a paper. He's like, this is his fucking team.
Yeah, that's where, like, one of the cool moments in this point, because at this time... Because I want to address something that's kind of been like an overarching plot going on so far, is almost everyone has been saying, hey, Bomb, watch out for that Kuhn guy. Don't trust him.
Yeah.
He's a very suspicious, like, don't trust him at all. So it's constantly setting up that Kuhn is using Bomb for something, and then you see that Kuhn, like, sabotages a whole group of people for the people on this list, and it's like, okay, Kuhn's a pretty good guy.
Yeah, that's the first hint that Kuhn is actually, like, a pretty legit person.
Yeah.
And then... going forward, as we get into further seasons of the show, Kuhn's going to get constantly reinforced. No, he's the fucking best.
But yeah, pretty quickly, the main administrator for the tests, Coffee McGee, I like to call them, instant coffee magician or something, but essentially has already figured out Kuhn is not playing our game. He's playing to make these people win.
Yeah. So anyways, we get back to Team B.
Quant is pissed.
Yeah, because...
Quant realizes he won, but he didn't really win.
Yeah.
Kuhn won, then Quant won.
And he was also told that something is amiss in his test.
Don't trust Ho. Essentially, was the whole process. So they all split off into their different teams. Androsi took all of the fishermen and Bomb to the exit.
Yeah, she's like, we're all going to go up there together as fishermen. If we all split off in different directions, he won't know which one of us is it. This is how we're going to get through. And they're all like, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. And the moment they start walking past Endorsi, she's like, no, I'm going to kill you all now to whittle down the numbers of fishermen I have to compete against. Turns back towards Bomb, and she's like, this is what it takes to climb the tower. You got to be willing to cut off the chaff in order to save the lag. Is that
but now
the phrase?
This is another part where this was a change they made in the anime to the comic that I wasn't a big fan of, because it's, again, Androsi is my favorite character hands down in this series, even beyond this.
Yeah.
And this scene in the comic, I feel like, really did a good job of showing her character motivation, because what she ends up doing in this point in the comic is she stops, draws a circle, and then says, now if anyone leaves this, I'll kill you. And then everyone's like, ah, you're so funny. And Drew's like, no, I'm serious. And then she starts whooping their ass, and it's like, now forfeit and leave, and you get to live. If you try to run from me or stay in this, I will kill you.
Yeah.
And then it gets revealed that she's doing this specifically because only 2 fishermen get through, and she wants to make sure Anak gets through.
Yeah.
So she wants to limit all the other fishermen, so it's her and Anak get through, because she wants to climb the tower with her. She finally has a goal aside from just being great like she is, I guess.
Well, yeah, because
she also wants to make a point of, Bomb, this is what you have to do to climb the tower, and if you go after Rachel, you are going to have to deal with this. This is not something you can just ignore.
Yeah. We do get a little bit of that moment in the anime where she uses her sword to draw a line in the ground, and she's like, anyone who crosses this line, I am going to kill.
Yeah.
And we see one person laugh it off. She fucks him the fuck up.
Yeah.
And then that's when she turns to Bomb, and she's like, now you have to make your choices. So anyways, Bomb is like, I gotta go check on Rachel, because I've now been told my calling in life. And so he runs back downstairs to see what's up with Rachel, and finds Ho with a knife to her back, and he's like, ooh, this is not good.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Quant, who has just taken out all of the spear bearers and discovered all of the unconscious fishermen, is just like, motherfucker, I guess I'm gonna listen to what Kuhn says and go back downstairs and see what the fuck's up with Ho.
And he's even more pissed because this team is just full of traitors.
There's one thing Quant hates. It's fucking traitors. Yeah. And my favorite thing I saw online when people were watching this is like, turns out the B&B team was for Betrayal. So this is another one of the big changes in this game is when Ho does this Betrayal thing, it's actually at the safe zone boundary. So that's why in the comic, it's such a big deal, because Quant actually physically can't save Rachel.
Okay.
And at this time, the spear bearers also are still alive, and they took prisoners of themselves. So they have prisoners on their team, and it's like, if you, Quants, don't give up, we'll kill our prisoners. So Quant's stuck in a spot where the spear bearers have their prisoners, and Rachel's there, and he could save both of them hypothetically, but if he goes for the spear bearers, then Rachel dies. If he goes for he can't get to Rachel because she's in the safe zone, and then Bomb shows up. And that's where he's like, okay, I need Bomb to go stop Ho. So he does that trick thing that he does in the anime as well, where he
reverse flow control.
Yeah, and just freezes him up.
Freezes him, he can't move.
And then he's like, so they are fake fighting at this point. He does this to him. He's like, now I need you to run at her and hit Ho with that, and I'm going to go save those spearbearers, going to get them. And then as he's running for it, we get a little monologue of Quan's like, I don't think he can actually do this, but I gave him the confidence to think he could do that, and he should at least keep Ho busy enough so that I can save these guys while Rachel can be saved later. And then he goes and he's just beating up the shit of the spearbearers. He looks back and Bam has perfectly mimicked the move.
And he's just dumbfounded. He's like, he did it on his first try. That's a move only rankers do.
Yeah.
So that's
why it's a lot more intense in the comic, because there's limits on top of the limits Quant already has. Instead of Quant just like, fuck it, I don't have to deal with this anymore, and just leaves.
So this is also the first instance we get to see of Bam's ridiculous learning power, which is he can learn any fucking move that anyone in the tower can use, so long as they use it on him first.
Yeah.
If he gets hit by an attack, you damn well better be prepared for him to pull that back out and use it right the fuck on you later on in that same fight.
Another thing I want to mention about Quant is during this hostage situation, Quant does give the best line that brings the whole hostage situation to a standstill for a moment, where the spearbearer's like, we're gonna kill them, and Ho's like, I'm gonna kill her, and then Quant's like, if anyone dies in this room, I'm killing everybody here. It's not like, oh yeah, you can kill a hostage, but I'm killing everyone if anyone dies.
You think they're your hostages, what you don't understand is you're my hostages right now.
The only person who's safe was Ho, because he's out of my reach.
Yeah. So anyways, the hostage situation is resolved, and Quant, fuming fucking mad, is just like, God damn it. I guess B team wins, because Endorsi's clearly made it out by this point. Endorsi's not having any of that. She wants to prove she's better than fucking Quant of her own fucking volition.
So she comes to fight a mano-a-mano. In both versions, it's kind of a fight with her and Bomb, to a degree. Now, in the anime, she just kind of tricks Quant.
Yeah.
But in the comic, she actually has to beat Quant, which it kind of gives her a bit more strength. Now, in this version, it kind of makes Quant look like a complete idiot, and he actually makes Rankers look pretty weak compared to the comic version. So, you saw the anime.
I've seen the fight where Bomb is freezing him with that new wave technique.
Rankers are a lot stronger than they appear from that fight we got with Quant.
Yeah, Rankers are much more of a force to be reckoned with in the comic.
Yeah, it took him, Drosy, and Bomb using almost everything they had to just steal something off of him.
Ooh.
They didn't even beat him. They just managed to, because she still uses a trick to do it, where he thinks he's grabbing hers and she grabs his, and then it's kind of like, when they cut through the person, it's like, oh, she's the sword, they fall over. It was pretty much that, but with buttons.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I got yours, and then he looks at it, it's like, what? And then she sees, she has both.
Still a good scene, though.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. But that ends with B Team, or Betrayal Team, as they should be called.
Yeah.
Also, can't forget that the whole thing ended with Ho dying and Ho accidentally stabbing.
Yeah, he stabbed Rachel in the back.
I don't know if you can call it an accident when he was specifically holding a knife against her spine, saying, I'm going to kill her.
He was holding it to her throat.
And it's fair. He was holding it to her throat and he accidentally stabs her in the spine instead of slitting her throat.
Yeah.
I suppose. I feel weird saying he accidentally stabbed the person who his whole only intention in this entire situation was to murder.
Yeah, but she ends up stabbed through the spine, Ghost disappears, and Ho, realizing the error of his ways, just stabs himself.
Yeah.
And dies. So we have the one casualty of this whole event.
Yep. And despite how big of a dick he was, Bam decides to hold a funeral in his honor.
Also, Quant has no luck doing these tests. People die constantly when he's running tests.
Yeah. He's not a great test administrator, I'm gonna go with as the word.
Also, just playing up Quant a bit more, there's a few really good lines from Quant too. One of the ones is, because Quant's a scout, and they tried to ambush him. He's like, now I see what you're thinking. I'm a scout, so clearly I'm not that strong, so you gotta ambush me. But you see, the thing about scouts when you get higher in the tower is, they're normally outnumbered because they're the ones that go ahead and get information. So scouts actually have to be really strong, and then immediately drops the whole team.
Yeah. Yeah, there's also the moment early on where he gets brought into a trap and he's like, oh, I see what's going on. You thought you would trap me here. You don't realize that you actually walked right into my trap by trying to trap me. Like, this is not working out the way you want it to work out. So yeah. Everyone passes that wanted to pass, and the people we didn't want to pass didn't pass.
Yep.
So then there's
Rachel's in a wheelchair now because apparently she can't walk anymore because
she got paralyzed because her spine got stabbed, obviously.
So this is where the last test is essentially going to happen before they can climb. But then all of a sudden it's like, well, Rachel fails because she can't participate in the test because she's in a wheelchair.
Yeah, you need.
She'll never walk again.
Yeah. To which Kuhn responds, "Hey, I want to invoke the test of the administrator in order to give Rachel the right to pass this test because I know how important it is to my good friend Bam."
So essentially there's 2 tests on every floor if you want to think about it. There's the tests made by the inhabitants, which are considered easier tests, but you have to do a series of them and you have to get approval to go back and do that.
Or
each floor has an administrator, which is kind of the guardian of the floor. And originally, they were the ones who gave the test. You had to pass their test, and they could decide whatever the fuck they wanted for their test. But it was usually more dangerous, and you could possibly die in it.
But it was only the one test that you had to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But things change, and then it originally became that, as Kunan's finding out, you need to be an irregular to invoke that.
Yep, so
where you're irregular, you cannot invoke the administrator test.
Yeah, he specifically tries to invoke the administrator test, and Coffee Guy, as we're now calling him, is like, I see you know about administrator tests, but you need to be an irregular to take one, and you, sir, are not a fucking irregular. So I guess we're not taking that test. To which Bam stands up, he's like...
To everyone's surprise in the room.
He's like, Bam! I'm an irregular. And everyone's like, oh, fuck. bam's an irregular.
And then Luro starts to put 2 and 2 together, and he's like, things are fishy here.
Yeah, because it almost feels like that whole situation was set up to specifically reveal someone was an irregular.
Yes, because it's also super suspicious that Kuhn even knew about the test of the administrator in the first place. It's almost like someone wanted him to declare the test of the administrator to bring up the concept of irregulars.
Now, there's another thing we have to address at this point, and that is Lopa Bioren, which is the guy who was teaching the wave control, and Coffee Guy actually confronts them, and we find out that they're actually an assassin sent by the king, who, their main reason they're there is specifically a knack. They want to get rid of a knack.
They want, well, the main reason is to retrieve the swords.
Yeah. But they end up catching on to something fishy with Bomb, and they decide that he's the threat as well.
Yeah, and while he's there, may as well deal with the imposter princess also, because, hey, that's not allowed. And then also there's Bomb. Bam.
Now, this is probably the first time I've ever been shaken up in any degree in this storyline when fucking his face and arms come out of the mouth of this body. I'm like, holy shit.
It's just a suit. I assumed that was the body.
A literal wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah.
And he just summons monsters out of the mouth. And I'm like, I just don't know how to feel. It just, my whole world was shaken at this moment.
Just disgust.
No, with disgust, I didn't know what to feel anymore about anything in this reality. Just, my world was different. It would never be the same again.
So yes, he decides, so one Coffee Guy confronts him. He decides, I'm going to kill Coffee Guy to keep my secret. And summons one of the monsters out of his mouth to try and eat Coffee Guy. To which Coffee Guy summons a bigger fish a la Star Wars. We're not talking about Star Wars. Summons a bigger monster.
There's always a bigger fish.
Yes. Summons a bigger monster to eat his monster. And he's like, why would you fight when we can be friends? I support your plan. I'll help you do what you want to do. I have my own schemes going on right now.
Yeah.
So then...
They specifically set up that the administrator mission is that they need to essentially pass a signed individual through the digestive system of this giant seal creature. And to do so, the teams have to break up to prevent other creatures from feeding on the seals. It is determined that Rachel and Bomb will be the ones who have to do this.
Yes, because Rachel's in a wheelchair and Bomb's the irregular.
Yeah.
So they need to rely on the strength of everyone else to make them.
The rest of them will have to keep them alive, and this is where Lopo decides that I'm going to kill Anak, because he ends up controlling, what's the name of the creature again? The bull?
The bull.
So,
which is like a shark monster, so cool that it's called the bull.
And then essentially, they end up having the fight with the bull escapes, and then Anak and Darcy are having like, we each take 5 minutes to fight it, whoever kills it wins.
Yeah. Important to note, neither one of them makes a fucking dent in the bull during this entire 5-minute exchange. They end up getting dragged away to fight Lopo Bioren, and that also doesn't really work out well for them either. They kind of get the shit kicked out of them by him as well, only for Princess Yuri to show up, because she's still looking for the Black March.
And I want to point out that at this point, most of the surviving team that's doing this final test are remnants of B Team. And at this point, Anak gets beaten all to hell, and then Lopo decides that, you know what, I'm going to have Endorosi kill her to prove that she's loyal. So you would kill her, and she looks like she's about to kill her, but then turns out B Team ain't about that betrayal shit anymore, and she's like, I'm going to fight with Anak.
Yeah.
B Team, betrayal no more. It's B Team for best friends.
She's still about betrayal, but not betraying Anak.
She's now about betraying Jihad.
It's best friends team now.
Yeah. Best friends betray big bad boys. I got there.
Ballin'.
We landed there, guys.
Bomb's B Team of betraying the big bad boys. Ballin'.
So yeah, Yuri shows up because she's still trying to figure out where her sword is, because Bomb was supposed to give it back to her right after completing that first test.
Yeah. But Endorosi was using one of them. I think she's only using one of them because Anak had the real one. And then Yuri shows up, it's like, give me back my swords and I'll deal with this.
Yeah.
Well, she takes back the Black March, and then she takes the Green April away from Anak, and she's like, yeah, you can have this back when you actually come to get it properly.
Yeah, when you can use it properly.
When you can actually fucking use it.
Yeah. And then Lopa's like, we gotta kill them. And then she starts like, are you threatening me? And you're just like, your life, give it to me.
Yeah, he specifically says, like, if you don't murder them right now, it's going to get reported back to the king that you allowed this traitor to escape who has been marked for death. And he's like, oh, this bitch thinks he can step to me. All right, let's see what happens.
I like how he shoots at the thing at her, and then there's just blood everywhere. He's like, I couldn't help myself. I just murdered her. And it Sam's over. It's like all of his things are dead. She's like, you fucked up.
Yep. You think you can kill me, dude? Yeah. So anyways, she ends up fighting Lopobia. At the same time, Mr. Wren sends the bull now to kill Bomb, because that's his other target in this whole situation. And Bomb does the badass thing of killing the bull that no one else could fucking put a scratch on.
Inside, once again.
Yeah.
It's the key technique. He jumps inside of it and uses his waves, his Shinsu or Shinsui or whatever you call it, to kill the bull.
And then he falls back to Rachel's arms.
He lands in her arms and then stands on the edge of the platform because he's a cool guy. And he's like, I did it, and to be honest, I did it because I love you, and don't you feel how much more power there is inside of us right now?
I'm literally glowing right now.
Yeah. And then she's like, oh, okay, and she just pushes him off the fucking platform.
Rachel stands up, pushes him out into the abyss, and he's like, yeah, no, not having this.
Yeah, so that's kind of the ending of that episode. We get the soft music
as Bomb kind of goes unconscious and falls into the abyss.
Then the next episode actually does something interesting where we actually go back and see
the whole
Rachel's
story through Rachel's perspective.
So we find out that she got pulled in the tower and she met Hedon, and Hedon's like, oh, I wasn't meaning to pull you, which ends up revealing quite the interesting thing that he was actually trying to grab Bomb to pull him into the tower, but Rachel got grabbed instead.
Yeah.
So Bomb was accidentally becoming an irregular because it grabbed Rachel by mistake.
Yeah.
And also, it also ties something in from the first episode where after Bomb passes his first test and Hedon turns to the camera and says, now this is going to be interesting. We see he was now actually talking to Rachel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially, Rachel accidentally gets pulled through the gate first. So, to go like a step back, it leads to this really fun situation where Bomb's an irregular who forced open the gate to get into the tower. The whole reason he forced open the gate was to follow after Rachel. The only reason he has to follow after Rachel is because of the fact that she got into the tower, and the only reason she got into the tower is because him forcing open the gate opened a pathway for her to squeeze through just before he went through the gate. So how the fuck did she get in the tower? This shouldn't make any goddamn sense.
But she still shows up before Bomb in time.
Well, she does get through first. It's essentially Hedon, when he was opening the gate for Bomb, she ended up coming through by accident.
Yeah. So she gets through. Hedon gives her the exact same challenge he's about to give Bomb, and he's like, go in there, break that sphere.
She starts complaining, I'm weak, I can't do this. Why am I being forced to do something like this? I just want to see the stars.
Her entire fucking attitude in this entire goddamn story is, it's not fair to expect me to do the same shit as everyone else because I'm weak and pathetic. I deserve special treatment in order for things to be fair. It's like, that's not how fair works.
And Hedon just calls it straight out to her face. Like, you don't want to see the stars, you want to be the star.
Yeah.
Shut up.
And so then he's like, fine, I'll let you climb the tower, but you have to kill Bomb.
Yeah. Puts her in an invisible bubble. She watches Bomb badass through the test. He's like, he's doing that to follow you. I can't imagine why. You're the fucking worst. And she's like, you gotta give me a way to climb the tower. And he's like, alright, here's your way. Kill that beautiful, beautiful baby boy who everyone who meets him will love.
It's like, I will give you the opportunity to climb the tower if you can kill Bam. So she has to climb the tower in order to kill Bam in order to climb the tower.
Now, I believe this is a bit of where the difference happens too, where in this version, he specifically says you have to kill him to climb the tower.
Yeah.
But I believe in the comic, it's worded a bit differently, whereas you will never see the top of the tower as long as he's alive.
That's kind of what I got from the sense of it.
Yeah,
it's
they
not
kind
that,
of worded it a little awkwardly there.
They worded it a little kind of jankily, but yeah, the implication is that in order to be allowed to fully ascend the tower, she needs to kill Bam before she reaches the top.
Yeah, otherwise she will never reach the top, according to what Hedon is saying. In this version, it kind of plays it out more where she's just like told you have to kill him, and she struggles with that, where in the comic, she, even though a lot of people hate Rachel, and she is useless, she actually isn't a complete idiot about what she's doing. She plans all of her stuff, and she uses the fact that she looks and is weak to her advantage with other people. And that's how she's able to get to the point where that's how she ended up with Josie and all that stuff. Like, she used her weakness to manipulate. And she actually just fully makes the choice to kill Bomb because she has the chance and she can take it. Whereas with this version, Hedon telling her, you'll never reach the top with Bomb, it's almost like in the comic, he's saying, yeah, you have to choose. You can reach the top of the tower, but you'll lose Bomb, or you can have Bomb and never reach the top of the tower. Whereas this one's like, you have to kill him. That's your rule.
Yeah. So anyways, she gets a little bit annoyed because how is she supposed to climb the tower at all to catch up to kill Bomb when she's still weak and pathetic, and thus starts the trend of immensely powerful beings being like, you're right, you are weak and pathetic. Here, have an immensely powerful weapon to make your task infinitely easier. And so that's where Ghost comes from. She's just given Ghost as a bodyguard who will protect her and kill all of her enemies for her, but also...
with the added feature of, if she is to die one time, Ghost will disappear and resurrect her.
Yeah, he'll take the killing blow for her, which is why she's able to walk after being stabbed in the spine, because he's the one who took the blow to the spine. We even hear later on that some doctors inspected her during this time, and there was no noticeable damage to her spine. She's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I don't know why she can't walk. She just can't walk, I guess.
But she successfully killed Bomb, so in her mind, I can now get to the top of the tower. Turns out Bomb's not dead.
Well, also, she successfully killed Bomb in her mind by pushing him off of the platform into the giant underwater or underground lake. But also, she, like, her first experience of the tower was watching Bam breathe easily in a giant underground water source.
That's awesome.
I don't know why she assumes he's dead after she pushes him off the platform.
I don't know.
Everyone else assumes he's dead because she tells them not that she pushed him off the platform, but that he went inside the bull and then the bull blew up and she couldn't see any remains of him.
Yeah, that the bull attacked him and then he was gone.
Yeah.
So at this point, the team decides that they're going to help Rachel climb the tower and Bomb's on her. Leo decides to quit because he wants to go find out what's really going on, and then he tells Quant he quit for him as well, so come with me. You're bad at this job anyways, Quant. People keep dying.
You're bad at this job. Before I quit, I'm gonna fire you. So now you're coming with me, okay?
Best part is, in the comics, that's also played a little bit differently, which is, Quant walks into the office right after Lara Rowe quits, and he's like, what just happened? Did Lara Rowe quit? And Han Sung-Yu is like, yeah, you're fired. And he's like, what? He's like, you guys go together like Coke and a burger. I can't separate you guys. You're fired. Go hang out with your friend. And Quant's like, what?
Yeah, so we find out that Quant wasn't actually any part of his plans at all. So essentially, his plans fully succeeded. He got rid of anyone who was suspicious, and there's no proof anymore. Because also, Ren is also just dead, crushed under that cliffside.
Yep.
But everyone thinks that Bomb is dead at this point, except for a few people. And one of my favorite moments here is when they're getting ready to actually climb the tower. We have this moment between Kun and Rachel, where they're just talking, and he's like, oh, Bomb was a good guy and all that stuff. And it's like, I only wish that I met him first. And then gives her just a long look.
Yeah.
It's like, Kun fucking knows
He
what that
knows.
is.
Kun, like, openly states, like, he fucking worshipped the ground you walked on. I'm pretty sure it's because you were the first person, like, he openly stated, you were the first person who he met, you were the first light in his life. I really fucking wish I had have met him first, and so he didn't have this warped perspective of you, the trash bag human.
Yeah, and then we also get the reveal that Leroy ends up finding out that someone manipulated Ho into the situation he did. And then we also find out that the masked woman, Huam Ra, I think is her name.
Huaryun is how I read it.
Is essentially, she was manipulating things. We'll find out later because it's never addressed, but she's what's called a navigator. So navigators are people that kind of have, it's another classification, and they have strong predictive abilities based on the flow.
Yeah. And our only introduction to navigators before this were the two navigators that were with Princess Yuri.
Yeah.
Guiding her through the tower to try to get to the trial site to take her sword back from Bam.
Exactly. So, her and also Mr. Coffee essentially are trying to set up something where they could get a hold of Bomb.
Well, no. Essentially, they want to have control of an irregular while no one else in the tower is aware of an irregular.
Yes, they had to make it look like he died, so they manipulated Ho with the letters. Which it looked like it was Kun for the longest time who set it up, but it wasn't. It was actually these two that set it up, and they wanted to have essentially the situation where Bomb could be removed. So they also manipulated Rachel into giving her the opportunity she needed so that they could remove Bomb, making it look like he was dead, having everyone believe he was dead, but then they are able to do what they want with Bomb specifically. And that's kind of what we get at the end, where we see that he is about to start his training.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because they belong to another organization called FUG, which is in direct competition or a conflict with the king.
Oh, Fug.
Yep. So we'll get into more of that later.
Yeah, that pretty much wraps up season 1. The training is done, so the rest of it actually is them climbing the tower.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to start reading about it. Now that I've finished watching the anime, I have got the all clear to start reading it.
Oh yeah, it's so fucking good. I can't wait until you get later in the story and I can talk about some of the cool shit that fucking goes.
Oh, definitely. There's a lot of, like, hyping up powers and stuff. One of the... There's a few downsides to the story, I would say, which one is that characters show up and disappear so goddamn quickly that, like, having a favorite character in any aspect, there's never a sure shot that that character's going to be around. Not because they get killed off or anything, but just because they kind of just stop showing up.
Yeah, like, each arc, essentially, Bam meets a whole new group of, like, 6 strangers who he's never met before. They immediately become his current running group who are best friends with him. And then later on in the arc, he runs into old people who he was friends with from previous arcs, and he starts working with them as well as the new friends he's made.
Essentially, there's a lot of teams we're going to start seeing that are in constant rotation. So it doesn't get boring where it's like the same characters doing the same thing over and that, like, just constantly getting stronger. And actually, I guess it's also an upside to it where we're seeing other characters get introduced that have to go through growth as well to get stronger instead of just the same characters leveling up like Dragon Ball Z, I guess.
Okay. A nice little breath of fresh air as the series goes on.
Yep.
I do like that.
You guys got anything else you want to say with regards to Tower of God?
Yeah, just one little thing and another nod to try to convince you guys to watch Made in Abyss. The same person who scored the music for Tower of God also scored the music for Made in Abyss. So if you like the music in one, you're going to love the music in the other.
That's fair.
Alright. No, I think we kind of covered it all.
Yeah,
I want to talk about the rest of the series, but not right now.
I have definitely a lot more to talk about the concept Tower of God, but I just don't want... Because this is purely for the anime, and there's people that are probably listening to this that have finished the season, but haven't gone further in the comic, so I don't want to end up spoiling
I've already spoiled the existence of certain tropes, but I've tried not to spoil specific events that happen throughout the series.
Yes, I am one of said people.
Yes.
And don't get me started on the horns.
Motherfucker.
Yeah, that was an ugly ogre. He was collecting horns. I wonder what that was about.
Not what I was getting at for sure.
Oh.
Yeah, there's...
Oh, right, yeah.
Don't worry about it. You'll get there.
Okay.
So, well, as is always the rule, if you manage to figure out by the time our podcast goes live, you will get called out in our next podcast. We try to be pretty sincere about that.
Yes. And has anyone correctly guessed what this episode was supposed to be on? Because they will also get called out on the next episode when we actually air that episode.
Well, both have. There's been no correct guesses yet.
Okay.
They will get called out for all the things they guess correctly, if they guess correctly in time. So, questions for the audience. Is there anyone worse than Rachel?
No. That's my opinion, but I want to hear if anyone in the audience actually likes Rachel.
I don't mean in Tower of God. I mean in any form of fiction. Provide me with a character who is more deplorable than fucking Rachel.
Well, I wouldn't say, I definitely could find people more deplorable. I think just a consensus, it's hard to, if someone's watched Tower of God, I feel like more people will say they hate Rachel compared to anyone else. And
yeah.
A fun fact for you guys, this series is about 10 years old now in Korea when it came out. And in Korea, calling someone a Rachel is like a grave insult for people in our age range.
Oh,
that's amazing.
That's cool. I like that. But question for you guys and any audience who wishes to answer. Who's your favorite character? I think I already know Keith's favorite character that we've seen thus far in Tower of God.
You see, actually, I have specifically 5 favorite characters, and 4 of them are in this. One of them has not shown up yet.
Okay.
So, I like, obviously, Dorsey's my favorite, top one. Anak is another one I really enjoy. Kun, Yuri, and my other favorite character hasn't shown up yet. I'm going to give the name, though. Peter will know who it is. Caliban.
Yep, that's legit. especially what has most recently happened in the comic. I'm also gonna give. I can probably give my top 5. Because fuck it, why not? So, Urian and Dorsey, obviously, fucking both of them are great. Kuhn, 110%. Especially just not Kuhn on his own, but the way Kuhn acts if Bam is the slightest bit involved, all the fucking way.
Find someone that looks at you like Kuhn looks at Bam when Bam's looking at Rachel.
She has another name that she goes by later on, but I'm just going to say Kaiser.
Okay.
To not get into the details of who she gets known as later on. And then White.
Okay. Well, my favorite characters...
2 of those characters you have no idea who
no
they
clue
are.
whatsoever.
No! Not even acknowledging that as the question right now, because I don't want to fuck with Matt too much.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, my favorite characters are Rack, our good old gator who calls everyone a turtle.
Yep.
Anak, because Anak. And, Loro, the dude who's always sleeping.
Legit.
Yep. Because he's just always sleeping and still getting by. A man of my kind.
Alright, so do you guys have any suggestions for things outside Tower of God?
So if you want to stick in the realm of WebToon things...
You motherfucker. You're going to say what I'm going to say.
Okay, fine, I'll switch it. If you like climbing towers, might I recommend a game series known as Ars Nelico. It's PlayStation 2, and last one was on PlayStation 3, but it's a series about this world that was destroyed by overuse of magical energies, and now these 3 towers exist, and these 3 separate towers are all controlled by the power of Hymnos and a Guardian, which is kind of like a godlike being in it. And each game just deals with each of the different towers and problems that you need to solve. One's the tower is slowly shutting down, one is that the tower needs to be replenished, and the other one is that we're going to save the planet.
Nice.
Interesting.
I recommend it.
To jump in real quick, because Keith almost stole my idea, and I don't want to give Matt even the opportunity to steal my idea, because I don't like thinking up ideas on the spot. So as Keith was saying, if you're a fan of these webtoons, another fantastic webtoon in kind of the similar vein would be God of High School. It's a fantastic fighting tournament between a whole bunch of high school students to determine who's the strongest high school students. Things happen later on to make the story not at all about that, but I'm not going to get into how the story stops being about that later on. But it's super good, and it's also just recently started being serialized on Crunchyroll as anime as well. So if you're not into reading webtoons but are a fan of Tower of God, the anime, check out the anime for God of High School.
And to be fair, like WebToons has a lot of really good similar comics, so it's a great spot to check out to find out a story similar to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been meaning to start that one a while ago. But, because I can never remember this whole recommendation section, so I can never think of one beforehand.
Is it going to be Made in Abyss again?
No, I already kind of recommended that.
Twice,
and again in this episode. But, no, just because I don't want to sound completely uncultured, I'm going to recommend the game No Man's Sky, even though it has no relation to this whatsoever. I've just been having a blast recently playing it.
Fair.
Because the game had its rocky start, but it is so much more now. Alright, so thank you for tuning in to yet another wonderful episode of What Is My Podcast About? Tune back in another 2 weeks where we will talk about something that we probably may have already suggested that we would be talking about. Maybe not. I don't know, try...
Refer to our episode from 2 weeks ago to figure out what the hint is for this episode.
Yes. But as usual, you can find us on any podcast streaming site. We're on YouTube. You can follow us on Instagram. We occasionally post things there. Clues on what our episode will be, perhaps. Yeah, so leave a comment. Write us an email if you want. Subscribe. I don't know, anything would help. And as always, that was this, I guess.
Is that how we always end our episodes?
I don't know.
That classic sign of that was this.
I guess.